Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting the like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. But let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from Clista de Lista, who says, following the court order. Alt account mobile. This is the first half of a decade-long tale that is currently resolving in a delightful way. Over a decade ago, I came home to find I was being moved out by my wife. We weren't in a great place, but I was blindsided. I was also served with a protection order that stated I could not come home without prior written permission. I had to go through my wife to see the kids, etc., and it was in effect for 90 days. I was devastated. A relative connected me with a bulldog of a lawyer. This lady was brilliant and no nonsense. She filed a rebuttal to the protection order, but told me these things take time and we were unlikely to see a judge before the 90 days were up. She was very clear that I must follow the court order to the letter. If there was any evidence otherwise, I'd be in an uphill battle if/when my wife renewed it. It only took one day before my now ex needed me to take the kids. I'd crashed at a friend's house, so I had no place to take them. So we agreed I'd watch them at home. I waited a few blocks away while waiting for an email. Ex called me and I reminded her of the details of the order, that I wouldn't come until I had permission. This happened twice more, that I waited down the street within the first week. So I told her I wouldn't leave where I was staying until I had the email. It was about 20 minutes away. I texted her to remind her. The very next day she again didn't email. We were planning on me picking up the kids to take them to school since their school was only a few minutes away from my work. However, because I had not received written permission, I ran out of time to drive to pick up the kids and then make it to their school and work. She called furious that I wasn't there. I reminded her about the permission and that I was out of time. She ended up being very late to work that day. She then went to write me blanket permission to come and go as needed, but my lawyer advised against it. Follow the order. The culmination of this was a few weeks later when she again forgot to send permission. Her boyfriend was staying over but didn't have his car with him. They both had to get to work, and that was the day I learned that he was her direct supervisor. Ex had to call a friend from work to pick up the kids and take them to school, and the friend found out. Of course, it got out at their work. Within a week of that, the boyfriend was fired over the relationship and my ex was suspended. By this time, I had my own place, so the kids ended up staying with me most days. I later learned that the protection order was the boyfriend's idea. Ex was quite mad about it, as it turned into evidence that I wasn't a threat to her or the family, and the judge was quite harsh with her over it when we settled for support and parenting time. She called it intentional and harmful parental alienation. And this is a two-part story that I said at the very start starts in malicious compliance and then was posted in pro-revenge, so you can maybe see where this is going to go with that. And I don't think there was much OP could have really done about this apart from what they did and, get a lawyer involved, and the lawyer was saying, just follow everything on that court order to the T, because otherwise you're just going to get yourself in trouble, which is exactly what OP did. But I do know with a quick glance over the update that it does give more information about what happened before all this. So we're going to go to OP's update to find out what happened next, which says, this is the second part that was removed from Pro Revenge. I'll maybe fix it later there. This is the second half of a decade-long tale that is currently resolving in a delightful way. A decade ago, my then wife, now ex-wife, began a relationship with a guy and kicked me out of my house. The boyfriend was instrumental in blindsiding me and planning how to keep me from my own kids. Ever since, I've kinda hated him. I've always been polite and respectful with boyfriend because he'd become my kid's stepdad, but I swore if I ever had a chance, I'd get back at him. I figured it would be something petty, but then he gift-wrapped my revenge and I've been running with it for almost 3 weeks now. My kids are mostly grown now, some in university, some in grades 11 to 12. The uni kids live with me, while the high school still go back and forth with their mum. I'm also remarried now. My wife and I each have our own vehicles, but my wife owns and insures a minivan for when we're all going somewhere together. The kids are free to use it too, as only one has a car. We only have one set of keys, so I put an AirTag on it. It's a little transponder that tracks its location. I put it on there in case the keys were lost. About 3 weeks ago, one of my older kids took the van out for the night but ended up staying at his mum's on the couch. Around 7 AM the next day, another kid asked to use the van. I pinged the AirTag only to find out it was hours away in an industrial section of another town. I was quite concerned why my kid was out there. I called him up and he was at his mum's where he'd said he'd be. He had no idea the van was missing. I called the police and gave them the location of the van. Within 20 minutes, they had stopped the van and the driver said he had permission to use it. Lo and behold, it was my ex-wife's boyfriend. The police weren't very interested in detaining him, as it would be easier for him just to drive the van back to our town and we could sort it out here. However, it wasn't my van, nor was he listed on the insurance to drive it. I asked that it be impounded. In Canada, we can't press charges, but I was adamant that this was theft and I wasn't going to let it go. Since the guy was out of town with no ride, the police did end up detaining him, probably because it was easier. I was given info for the yard where the van was impounded. Since we had the next day off, my wife and I drove out to the yard to pick it up. When we got there, I first checked for damage since it was sitting a little low. Nothing outside. When I checked inside, I found that it was loaded with industrial fasteners and cable. Think seismic mitigation. Turns out boyfriend used my wife's van to pick up stuff for work. My wife turns on her heels and walks to the office. I had to jog to keep up. She asks who has access to the van. They have the only set of keys, so my wife is assured only her or me. At this point, I get where she's going with this. I instruct them that no one has access to the van but us. I had $35 with me, so I gave it to them as a tip. They promised me that no one would get in there, and they actually moved the van into a secured area within the yard. Then we went home without the van. We weren't even home from the long drive when I got the first text from boyfriend about getting the equipment. I explained that we left the van as there were expenses we were not going to pay. Towing, impounding fees, daily storage. I told him that he'd have to pay for them before I pick up the van. He was super mad and swore he'd pay me back. I said no way. Within an hour, I got a call from his boss. They needed the equipment ASAP for a time-sensitive job. I explained that it was impounded and that I won't have time to get it until next week now, and it has to be paid in advance. Boss swears up and down at me. I calmly explained that I didn't steal a vehicle to transport his stuff. Boss was having none of that, so I said I won't tolerate that abuse and hung up. And I blocked him and his company on every platform I'm reachable on. And that was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been able to make excuses every single time boyfriend tries to arrange picking up the van. Often because the kids don't have the van, so I have to drive them. Boss has gone through a few times using other numbers and sent a ton of emails that I ignore. But I did reply and explain that both my wife and I need about 4 hours to do the round trip and that it needs to be paid for ahead of time. And it's added up to $25 a day for secure storage, plus towing and impounding fees, etc. Plus, I wanted to be paid for the fuel boyfriend used as well as our travel. Boyfriend and I agreed on the standard 58 cents per kilometer, and the boss e-transferred us the total cost of our driving. By now, the van has made one trip and our car has done two. It came to almost $600. So on Friday, it finally happened. My wife and I drove out and picked up the van. It was prepaid and ready to be released. I dropped off a dozen beer at the office when I picked up the keys and went to grab the van. However, I wasn't going to transport boss and boyfriend stuff, so I arranged for it to be held at the yard at the same rate as the vehicle, unloaded it and left right before it closed for the weekend. I got a call from boyfriend asking when he can come by with a work truck to get the stuff. I told him it's still at the impound almost 2 hours away, and the office opens Monday at 9. There was only silence on the other end, so I hung up after about 10 seconds. Through this, I've been getting vague updates from my ex, who I've got a good relationship with now. She was livid with boyfriend and was clear with me that any and all consequences were squarely on him. He's kept his job, but is missing the next pay increase and is not getting his year-end bonus. Ex said they're way too short-staffed to let him go, but he's in the doghouse at home and at work. No word on criminal charges for taking the van, but Crown handles that, and I'm not suing in civil court. Ooh-wee. When OP actually took out the stuff and left it in the impound under the same charges as well, I wasn't expecting that at the end, I gotta be honest. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And this story comes from Similar Light, who says, my husband wanted to sleep with other people. Now he's upset about me doing it. My husband basically begged for a year, maybe longer, to sleep with other people. He knew I didn't want it. I told him no over and over and over. I was crying so many times after he would ask. I told him I was depressed about it. I didn't want it. Why does he want other people? He said it's nothing about me. He just wants to see what it's like with other people. That I look good, but he isn't doing it because of looks. Basically just wanted to try anyone else. After he wouldn't stop, I said fine. I told him I didn't want to do it, but he would not quit asking, so fine, just go for it. He did some stuff with a person, but not full-blown sex. That he's all done. He told me when he was begging that whole time that I can do it too, and I can go and have fun and go away for the night. Well, I wasn't that interested, but I started talking to someone and the conversation just went that way. I haven't felt wanted like this in forever. Keep in mind, he told me a week ago I can go find someone and just tell him when I'm going. So I told him last week I'm talking to someone. Then the other night said, okay, I'm going to do it. Well, then he comes to me the next day and says he was so sad about it and he couldn't sleep all night and he is scared I'm going to leave him. I told him honestly, I'm pretty pissed because I felt like that for a year and he knew I didn't want to do it, but he kept begging, so he's getting what he wanted. So now he's saying he regrets it and he feels bad for doing that to me. I told him, oh well, he did it and it's bullshit to change it when it's benefiting me. I honestly might divorce if he tells me I can't because he put me through so much shit. I do not want to be a single mum, but I'm pretty mad about this. I gave him what he wanted after all of that torment and heartache, and now he is pulling this. He said he hasn't changed his mind, but if he does, then I'm done. He wanted this, he got it. He didn't care about how much it hurt me. OP then edits the post and says, I wanted to add more info about being a single mum. I've been a stay-at-home mum a long time. I have absolutely no family or help nearby. I'm alone. Half of me feels it isn't fair that I should have to go struggle alone because of his choice to do this. He will be fine. He makes great money. I'm the one being punished. I feel like maybe at this point I might have to, but it just adds to the hurt. I'm going to have to struggle so much for something I never asked for. I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for a family. I didn't finish school and I will not find a good paying job. I have no idea how to afford this, and it makes me sad I won't be able to be there as much for my daughter anymore if I do this. I know parents do it all the time, but I like the life I had before this happened. It just doesn't feel fair. Being a stay-at-home mum worked for us because he works a ton, constantly, and goes out of town for work trips, and we didn't have to worry about 2 work schedules. I just got to be a mum and focus on my family. Now, we've seen situations like this a few times on this channel now, and I never understand what's going through people's mind when your partner says, no, they don't want this, and you try to convince them otherwise. And I got to be honest, I just can't see a particularly good outcome from this, and by good I mean like the relationship staying together. I just can't see it happening. But who am I? Restar says, yeah, I've seen this too often. Where the guy starts not being attracted to his wife physically due to pregnancy or aging or what have you, pushes for an open relationship hard, and the wife eventually caves because she loves him and wants to stay married to him. Then he tries to find someone to have sex with, finds not many women are even remotely interested, whereas his wife, that he stupidly thought no one wanted, has a line out the door she could choose from. All of a sudden, he then magically has decided he wants to close the relationship again. Pathetic. Embarrassed Bit says many men, especially married, overthink their hotness. They don't realize that being open means your wife easily being wanted and able to bang many guys while he's struggling to find anything. Once they wake up and realize it ain't great as I thought and my wife can get it any time, many of them want to shut it down. Women have sex when they want. Men have sex when they can. You have a right to be pissed. Your feelings are valid. Good luck in whatever you choose. Molotov says being a single mum may seem bad, but imagine raising a kid with this man who thinks this way. He was willing to hurt you for his own selfish needs. Doubt he will treat the kid much better. He only thinks about how something will affect him. He didn't care how it affected you or your kid. Mission Practice says my husband did this to me a few months ago. Said he wanted to open our marriage. I didn't want to. He broke my heart. I got a date before he did. He begged me not to go, and then we decided to work on things. Things were great for a few weeks, and now they're back to being the same way. Do what makes you happy, and are selfish and don't think of us far too often. Your husband, I'm sure, wouldn't worry about making you a single mum if he found someone else, so don't worry about hurting him. After a year of torment, you deserve happiness. And one more comment from NYC who says, yeah, your husband is kind of an idiot. This exact situation happened to a pair of close friends of mine. A husband saw a single male friend of his making out with two single female friends at a party, each of whom he was attracted to, and thought, wow, I'd give my left arm to be with either one of those, let alone both. Now his wife was very attractive and he didn't want to divorce her. He just wanted to get some on the side with her permission. So he approached her with this, and initially she shut him down. Eventually he wore her down and she said they could try it. He didn't want to be seen as the bad guy cheating on his wife, and back then the "my wife and I have an arrangement" was such a trope because it was almost never true. So he wanted her to go first, but she was uncomfortable approaching someone like that, especially since marital infidelity, even with your spouse's approval, went completely against their upbringing. His solution was going to a mutual friend of theirs who was single, and he knew his wife found attractive from comments she made in passing, and in so many words said, "Please sleep with my wife," and telling him why. The friend thought the husband was an idiot for passing up such an attractive woman, but thought, hey, if they're both okay with it, I'll be down to be with her, even if it's just once. So the wife and friend slept together, and then it went from a one-time thing to every now and again thing, to whenever they could arrange it thing. Meanwhile, the husband got nowhere with any of his attempts. He was not nearly as attractive as his wife, so when he approached his wife about shutting down the openness, the response he got was divorce papers, and she ended up with a friend. And I'm just surprised at how many open relationships there are. There's just like story after story below this one about people giving their experiences with it. But hey, OP did go on to update their post, which says, well, things are still kind of in limbo right now. We got into a couple of fights since that last post, and I think we have talked a lot and gotten a lot of things out of the way. Honestly, I've never seen my husband that sad or worried before. I've only seen him cry twice, and he was crying over this. Right now, we are not divorcing. Not sure if I'm even interested in the other guy anymore. We haven't been talking much because of his end, not mine. During the first fight we had, I told my husband that I don't care what he says. I'm doing it either way since he wanted it. And I told him he's just mad he hasn't found anyone. He said maybe that's true, but he's not sure. So then he was depressed a few days because I said I'm going to do whatever I want to do. But now that I'm losing interest in the other guy, we might just close it off on both ends and go to therapy. We also might keep it open though. The other thing, I think, my husband has a porn addiction the last year. There were times he'd rather have that than me, and I told him I think he has one. Since this happened, he told me he thinks I was right and he stopped watching it. Honestly, I think he does feel bad and he does want to try. He knows I'm mad that he put me through all of that, but he says he didn't realize it made me so depressed. Not sure how he didn't notice, but whatever. I just want to say, besides this issue, he's a really good husband and dad. He isn't a bad person, and I do want to try to work through this. It's not like I have anything else going on anyways. If I'm ever single again, I'm staying that way. I've been divorced before, but had no kids together. My ex was horrible and controlling. He would pin me against the wall or floor if I was upset at his behavior and tell me that I wasn't allowed to move until I stopped crying. Did lots of other shit too, but you get the idea. My husband isn't like that at all. And before this, things were fine, so maybe we can get back there. I want to try at least. And I gotta say, coming out of that story, I'm not sure how I felt about that ending. OP mentioned their previous relationship, their previous abusive relationship, and sort of like set that as a bar for their relationship and said, oh, well, you know, my current husband isn't that bad, so it's okay. And it's like, well, no, the fuck it's not. I don't know, maybe that's just me on that one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.